Alright guys, so we got a really exciting video today because we have the BIQU PIXEL L. So I went ahead and unboxed the printer. Everything was packed very well. It is quite heavy at about 21 kilograms, which is about 46 pounds. And everything you guys see here is everything we took out of the box. So the lid does come separately where we still have to mount it, and we'll do that. We got the build plate over there. We got an extra FEP film for our tub, which is nice that they include this. But most importantly here is we have a box full of things. So let's go ahead and go through it one by one. So we do have a manual, and this is kind of like a fold out type one large page, but I'd probably like to see a book better. So there's a packing list, specs of the printer, and then we got steps 1 through 9, I think. Well, actually 10 of getting this thing together. And then we got some more information and also slicing. So yeah, that's the manual. And again, I do prefer a book, but even something like this is much better than nothing. So here we have a bag of tools, and looks like some kind of leveling adjusters. Not sure exactly what these are called, but there are 3 of them in there and a few other things, and we'll go through this later on in the video. We get some tweezers, a couple spatulas. The metal one is to scrape off the bed or the build plate, and the plastic one is good to kind of scrub inside the tub where the film is. So definitely don't use the metal spatula for the tub. We get a pretty nice high quality cutters, and these are great for cleaning supports off models. Empty bottle that holds resin in here, and you can use this thing as an auto filler for this printer, and this neck here should be similar to most resins out there. But yeah, this is a bottle that you can add resin to and then have it auto feed into the printer, and we'll look at that feature a little later in the video. So we also get some strain filters, and these are good for putting the resin back into the bottle from the tub so you don't contaminate it. And also quite a few gloves here to protect your hands when you do have to mess with the resin. And for the last part, we got a very large brick here, which is the power supply. We do have a light on it, and it is a 24 volt 10 amp. So yeah, quite a powerful supply here. And the wall cable that plugs into it. And we got a US plug, and it looks like it does have a pretty nice, reasonable reach. So yeah, that's everything in the box. So I'm gonna move some of this stuff out of the way, and let's see if we can go to step 1. In the manual, it actually starts with loosening the tub and removing it. And I'm guessing we're probably gonna need to power on the printer for that. But the thing I wanted to do first, to be honest, is to put on this cap. Now I believe there's quite a few things in here. These little bolts here, and actually it's not these bolts, but it looks like these right here, because we have 4 exactly with large caps and a couple nuts. So installing the cap should be pretty simple. I'm gonna grab it here and set it over. And if we look at the back here, we can see hinge itself is towards the back, because if we put it towards the front here, there's gonna be a gap. So yeah, it does look like it's... So we got the little bolt, which will go through, and then the nut will tighten. So putting the bolt in and then putting the nut on the other end is the hard part, and I think we do need to open it up. So maybe bring the hinge down, that way we can work on it like this. So if you got somebody to help you, this might be a good time to ask, as it is a little bit tricky here to do yourself, but as you can see, not impossible. All right, so now we just need an Allen wrench and also this open-ended wrench that we can hold the nut from the other side. And we're just gonna tighten them up. And with this, guys, you wanna be pretty careful not to over tighten it, as you are going into acrylic here. So I couldn't line it up perfect, but you know, it's still pretty close, and yeah, it works great and holds itself when you open it, and also easily closes when you need it to. And there's like a little grab here that you can pick it up with. So yeah, so there is quite a few things to look at here, guys, and I do want to go over everything, but I think before we do anything else, let's go ahead and connect the power supply, and we'll power it on. So looks like we got about 9 to 10 feet of reach. So I do have the printer plugged in. Let's go ahead and power it on, and there's the side switch here, and we're gonna look at all the details here in a second, guys. And right away, the first thing that stands out is this little module right here with some numbers that says 28. Now the printer booted up really quick, and you guys can see we have a pretty large touchscreen display. So let's go ahead and see, click on tools, if we can manually move this up, the Z-axis. So here we go. So I'm just gonna click up here, and it moves right up, maybe a little more. And we're gonna go ahead and get the vat out, which is this tub here. And there's a couple screw down bolts that hold it down on each end. And we can see it's quite large, and it is all metal. And what's really special about this thing is actually a couple things. So right away we notice this little addition here. This is actually the out of feed, and this part should come out. Let's see. All right, there it goes. So you would put this on your bottle, and then there's like a little spring with the inserts. You push down and then you kind of twist it into lock it in. And what this is going to do is basically keep the level up to the certain elevation here and slowly auto feeding in as you're printing from the bottle. So I believe that most bottles should fit on there, but we'll try that out. But also guys, this bottle that was included will definitely fit in there. So we do get some handles on each side to hold it, which is nice. Now if we look on the side, maybe you guys can see there's like these little thin little feet. And those are actually kind of like feet. When you set it down, it's not going to sit on the film. And also they line it up to the base of the printer. There's a few slots here that are cut out. The tub kind of falls into. That way it stays planted and doesn't move around. Yeah, that's a really nice touch. But the main thing about this tub that's quite unique is if you look at these pins here, guys, this is actually an electrical connection for the tub. And the reason it has that is because the tub itself actually has a heating element that warms the resin. And so these connectors make contact on the backside of the printer. But yeah, the resin is basically heated through a heating element in the tub, which is quite unique. I've never seen that before. Yeah, if you live in colder climates, this could be quite useful here, having a very steady resin temperature, giving you consistent results. Because in any liquids, including resin, when things get really cold, they start to kind of gum up and get thick, and this will prevent that and help with the consistency of the resin. So there is a screen protector already applied to the main screen here, and we just want to peel off the top layer, not the whole screen. And you guys can kind of see it there. Also, I forgot to mention, you can take this clamp here off that has all these little bolts that clamps down the film and replace it once it wears out with this extra one. So let's set this to the side and grab the build plate. And this thing is pretty serious, guys. And you guys can see the finish. It's like a machined kind of aluminum. We got some bolts on the very edges, 3 on each side. This is 196 by 122. So this will slide right onto the build plate here. So this is the actual build plate, and this is the frame to connect it. And so if you guys see, we have a really kind of like a step down to the build volume. And the reason for that is that way you can get pretty deep into the resin before, you know, you soak everything else in resin. So yeah, this just slides over. Let's bring that down a bit, guys. And we do have a couple of these screw bolts that will go on top to lock it in. But yeah, very impressed of all of the design elements to this. Everything is super heavy duty. So another really quite interesting thing about this printer is that we have these micrometers, I guess is what they're called, and really precise leveling adjusters, and they're very high quality and very heavy. So again, I'm really impressed with what this printer comes with, including these adjusters here. It appears that we just install them on the top by turning them into the top frame here. I'll go down just a little more. Now I hope I'm gonna do this correctly because I've never done this before. All right, so all 3 of them are installed. So we have 4 bolts, 2 on each side right here that we need to loosen. And when we do that, you guys can see this whole plate here just moves around. So you can literally go up, down, kind of side to side. And this is how we're gonna micro adjust it. Now, before we do anything else, I think I'm realizing that we need to back off. So on the very top here, adjustments, and we wanna go all the way up, because there's a pin that comes out at the bottom that pushes down on it. So let's go ahead and back out pretty much until the pin is above the metal there so we don't hit the build plate. All right, so none of them are poking out the bottom. So I lowered you guys down just a little bit, but you will need some kind of piece of paper to put underneath. And so what we're trying to do here is adjust the gap between the screen and the build plate. So in the main menu, you're gonna click on Tools and then Manual, and then we're gonna click on Home. So that should bring us down to where we need to be, or close. And you guys will see this kind of compensating as it goes down right here, the play that it has. So this went down, and you guys saw how that kind of went down a little more, which is perfect. So the way we adjust it is quite simple. We're just gonna turn these until our pin, and I hope you guys can see that pin right there, that goes down. It's basically gonna put a little pressure on the build plate. So spinning the outer shell here makes it go fast, and then the one on the top is kind of like little clicks. So I'm just spinning it till it touches the outer shell, or the outer part. And once it starts to touch just a little, I'm gonna let it go. All right, so they're all barely touching. Now I do wanna put a little bit of pressure on there, so I'm just gonna click them about 5 times or so. that should be pretty good. Now you don't want to, go crazy on this thing, because don't forget you do have a screen there that you're pushing down on. But once you think you got, pretty even pressure all around, you can go ahead and tighten the side bolts to lock it in. And you can snug these up pretty, generously. I'm gonna click on 0.01 and go up just a little bit and see what that looks like. And according to what I can see, guys, it's literally perfect. So, but yeah, if you guys have any trouble leveling the bed or, being too close down, just add more paper to the bottom and, that'll bring it up, or more thickness between the screen and the build plate. We can technically now remove these micrometer things. And to be honest, guys, these things seem to be a little overkill. We spin the bottom here to screw it in, and then you screw this piece to go quickly down on the pin. So you guys can see I can retract it back in pretty quick if I spin this one. And then the very top one is very micro adjusting. So it goes very, very slow. So yeah, very cool tool, very high quality and pretty heavy. And there's 3 of them, and I'm quite impressed that they included these. The reason I say that is because I don't feel like it was necessary to this extreme, or at least that's my opinion, but I do definitely appreciate them. And you do remove these after you're done adjusting. So let's go ahead and go up just a little more. And we'll put in our resin tub back in. 2 screws, 1 on each side. And for this side, it's quite important because we have those connections to the heated module. And it does still say E.0. That's probably because we took it off while it was on. Let's go ahead and try to reset it. Sure enough, it comes back to life. It says 29. Now, I'm guessing that's the preheated setting there. Let's see. There's a couple buttons. Okay, yeah, so that is the temperature adjustments. I believe that's in Celsius, so... Alright, it goes all the way to 50 and all the way down to 0. But yeah, if it is cold outside, you can, adjust it. Since we are in a warm climate here and we're at 29, I'm just going to put it on 30, and I don't think we need more than that. Well, actually, for testing, let's go ahead and hit that thing all the way up to 50. And we'll see if it actually warms up the whole build volume. So we're at 29 now, and it looks like it's blinking, so I'm guessing it's powering it. I can actually feel it getting warm on the outside. So I am pretty excited to put some resin in this thing, and then we'll see if we have any kind of test prints included on this thumb drive that came with the printer, which by the way is a ScanDisk 16 gig. But before we do all that, let's go ahead and take a closer look at all the details. Alright, so yeah, this is what it looks like from a distance here with the lid open. Yeah, it does go pretty tall, especially the lid going up. It is a pretty decent size printer. So if we lower this thing down, it's definitely a nice medium size. I do like this tint of red on the cap itself, quite nice looking. Accent lines, beautiful design, everything is metal. We've got a vent here, a little red accent. The screen is quite large, 4.3 inches, little accents around it. Branding here, 4 large rubber squishy feet. And to the right side, it gets a little more interesting. We do have a fan here that vents out. And by the way, this is filtered, so it should help with the smells. We got a USB port here to plug in the thumb drive. We can go ahead and do that. Beside that, we got the power on and off switch. So let's go ahead and turn it off. And as far as the sound goes, you guys can maybe hear or not, but it is mostly fan, obviously, and a little bit on the louder side. But understanding for this printer and the power that it needs, it does have quite a bit of cooling. So looking at the back of the machine, on the bottom here, we can see this is where our port plugs in for the main power cord. The cord itself is pretty thick, nice solid connection there. The manufacturing label, power rating of 210 watts, the product size, the weight 19 kilograms, operating voltage 24, the typical 405 nanometer wavelength, and as we know, this is the Pixel L model. So above the label we have the filter element, so you can replace it, looks like. There's a couple little bolts. Actually, let's go ahead and look at that. So I got the wrench needed to pull these little guys out, and sure enough, looks like it does appear to be a filter of some sort that's kind of got a cardboard built to it, but it does appear to have carbon little, I don't know if you guys can see or not, but there's like little balls of carbon in there. You can maybe hear them. So let's go ahead and put that back. I'll also put this lid back on. So yeah, really happy to see that filter there. So going up, we got pretty much just a clean back with a bunch of fingerprints that I just made. But yeah, you guys can see here the hinges for the lid. They're pretty heavy duty, all metal. So opening the lid is quite simple. There's a cutout here, and then there's a little flat spot on the cover itself that you just raise up, and it holds itself very nicely. It doesn't move. So these hinges are doing a great job. So let's start here from the top. We got a little cover. It's metal. Our whole channel here on the Z-axis is also metal. You guys can see we have dual linear rails. Everything is super heavy duty. Our lead screw is actually a ball bearing type, and this is why it looks like that. So there's actually little ball bearings that roll up and down around. Got really nice linear rail bearings. So yeah, extremely heavy duty everything, guys. I mean, this is all metal and super high quality. So let's pull off the build platform. We're just gonna loosen these two bolts and it just slides out. But yeah, it's as simple as that, and it just comes right out. And we can see a little better what the frame looks like. Nice and thick. So these are the 3 openings where our micrometers went in, or when we adjusted the plate. The 4 bolts that we loosened, 2 on each side to do that. So we saw the tub, that's where the air filter is. And also on the other side, you guys can see this is our controller for the heated tub and the display. And those are the connectors there that it connects to. Then our notches here where the tub slides on. Then our screen with the screen protector on there still. All this base is completely metal. And you guys can see the mount here for the upper portion. Very heavy duty and everything is very high quality. So I got the printer laying on its back and I wanted to show you guys underneath. There is a small cover that comes off and you can see the main board. And this metal is quite thick, which is really nice. And you guys can see all the holes for cooling. But I also went ahead and took off the main plate off the bottom. And we just got one little bolt holding everything. And this thing is quite substantial and pretty heavy, and the feet are mounted straight to the plate. So yeah, very high quality materials here. So yeah, you do have access through the small one with just 4 bolts to this main board. We do have an ARM processor. You guys can see that. And yeah, very clean. But what's probably most interesting is that it is a Cheat2 board M20 basic, what it says on there, which I thought was quite interesting. Yeah, you guys can see very nicely engineered board. And we got a USB cord that goes to the outer shell. Our power connections here and things like that. Ribbon cables connecting to it. We do have another circuit board here. It looks like some kind of regulator. And also some kind of distribution switch here of some sort, which is kind of interesting. So all this stuff is mounted on another metal plate that also houses this very large fan. And behind that, you guys can see, is a very large aluminum heatsink. So yeah, everything is very nicely built and again, very impressive. So overall, I'm really impressed with this thing and pretty excited to try it out here. So I am planning on using washable resin, and here I have a bottle, I think 1,000 grams, yeah, which is 1 kilogram of gray. And the reason I like washable is because it's much easier to handle, especially on larger printers like this. You know, unless you have a really big wash and cure station to process your models, it's, you know, quite hard and very smelly to use alcohol. So I do like washable resin. We'll see how this one does here. So theoretically, let's see. So yeah, you guys can see the whole 1,000 grams or the 1 kilogram bottle, which is quite large, actually fits in there perfect. So we should be able to put that in there and it'll be auto filling in as we print. Now, I'm not gonna need all of this, but for testing it, let's go ahead and do that. I do have smaller bottles, but I'm very curious because for most people, I would think you're using this larger format, you're probably going to be printing quite a bit of things and maybe even large things. So you're going to need a lot of resin. Let's see how easy it is to connect a large bottle. Now we do need to mix it up first, even though this was probably mixed up pretty well during shipping, but we still want to give it a good mix because whatever polymers are in there, we want them to all get mixed up and not be separated. Now for this part, you do have to remember that, you know, you're dealing with toxic stuff. So you want to make sure you have ventilated area. And not only that, wear gloves for hand protection and even a mask for your lungs. So since we're only going to connect this, I don't think I'm going to need anything. So let's go ahead and open this thing up. But yeah, theoretically, we should be able to screw this cap down onto the bottle and it should seal it. So I'm going to make sure we get a good connection there. So yeah, it's not coming out. But whenever this spring-loaded valve is pushed, it's going to start releasing the resin. As I put it down in there, once it pushes on the valve, it's going to release it. And sure enough, you guys can see it coming. Okay, there we go. So it does look like the larger bottle does fit in here. The side arm does seem to touch it, just a tiny bit. But it doesn't seem like it'll affect it at all, at least what I can tell. So it is filling up pretty slow because, you know, it's not made to just rush in like crazy. It's slowly kind of topping it off. It will add it up here shortly as it continues to roll in. And yeah, that seemed like it worked pretty good. All right, so let's put the build plate back on and we'll tighten it up. I'm gonna turn the printer back on. And as our resin is poured in, let's go ahead and look at the screen real quick. So this is what we see on our main screen. We got Tools, System, and Print. So on tools, we have the manual movements of up and down, as you guys saw earlier. We use this to home the bed, and you can choose the amount it moves. Exposure test is going to test our LCD screen, and actually I probably should have done that before we did all this resin, but in any case I might show you that a little later in the video. But it kind of has to do with also clean raw material button down here, which we'll go over a little later in the video in the cleaning up portion. We got the set to 0 button, stop, and back. So yeah, nothing too complicated here. Systems, we got about the printer. Here you could also turn on the beeper on and off if you don't want it to beep, let's say. After sales service contact. The language, so here are all the different languages available, quite a few of them actually, so we're going to choose English. We got TPA adjustment, we're not going to mess with, and that's it. So yeah, quite simple. And then we got the print button, which looks like has some folders in there, but do we have a test file? Alright, so I did find something, and you guys probably can't see, but it's in Chinese letters, and it is a CTB file. So let's click on it. Okay, and we actually do get a preview. In any case, I'm going to go ahead and start this one, see how that works out. Okay, well, looks like our build plate's coming down. All right. And we are printing, guys. So yeah, everything looks good. So the first layers are going to take longer. Normally that's how it's sliced. And then shortly after that, it should go pretty quick. And we do have a 4K monochrome LCD screen, which is really quick printing and should be very accurate and detailed. So let's go ahead and bring our temperature on the tub heater here to 40. Well, actually, let's go ahead and just go all the way up. Now, hopefully that doesn't mess too much with our resin, but we'll see how long it takes for it to heat up to 50, just out of curiosity. And it is quite full on the tub. Well, 2/3 full, I guess. And as it is preheating, you guys can see it's blinking. So this is what we see when we're printing. So this is a little preview of the layer, or what it looks like. It disappears when it goes up. So that's our next layer after that one. So we got a percentage bar, which 1%, the file name underneath that. The time it'll take to print this, which is 2 hours and 13 minutes. The time passed since we started, which has been about 4 minutes now. And we're on layer 5 out of 1000. So we got a stop, pause, and settings button, which is more options. If we click on that, you guys can see we got bottom layers. So the first 5 layers are going to be exposed at 40 seconds at a time, and then 1.8 seconds after that. And if you want to adjust any of this, you can just click on it and adjust it and then check mark it. So I'm just going to go back. So if you do want to make longer or shorter exposures right here from the printer, you can. But yeah, pretty much simple as that. We are just printing away. All right, so since we're done with our first 5 layers at 40 seconds, we are literally under 2 seconds per layer now. And you guys can see it's going to be going up and down every 1.8 seconds. So it should be boogieing along now. And our temperature is slowly rising. We're at 35 now. And I can definitely feel that it's hot here. So 50 is probably a little extreme. I would think anywhere in the 30s to 40s should be more than enough. So you're just trying to keep a consistent resin temperature as you're printing. Especially if it's a really long print and your ambient temperature fluctuates quite a bit. This could be very, very good. So yeah, so far so good. Our bottle fits in here kind of. It doesn't seem to be interfering. The printer is pretty quiet overall. You can't even really hear going up and down. The only thing really is the fan sounds, which is quite normal. And if we lower the hood, you guys probably can't see anything because it's quite dark actually, this cover, which is great because it protects it from any kind of UV light going into the printing area and the resin. But not only that, this lid does help a bit with the smells and the fumes, as it just concentrates it more in there where the fan can pull it out and clean the air. So I'm going to let this thing print out to maybe about 100 layers or so. And then I want to try to pause it and see if this printer can raise the build plate, where we can see if we started the print good and everything is stuck to the build plate. All right guys, so we're at layer like 107 now. So let's go ahead and try out the pause feature by pushing pause. And hopefully the build plate will raise high enough where we can see the model underneath. So this is great if you are just worried about your print sticking to the build plate, to make sure everything's good and sticking. This is one way to see. As you guys can see, our model is stuck under the build plate and everything is good. So this is a great way to check if you're changing resin, some settings, whatnot else, or just curious, because by the time it comes out and you can see it, it's sometimes way too late and you've spent too much time. But yeah, it looks like our model is stuck and everything's good. So let's go ahead and just push play here to continue. And it goes back to printing. And if you guys notice back there, it looks like our heated tub is at 43 now. And it's been about 18 minutes since we started. So yeah, doing pretty good. Honestly, it probably doesn't need to be that hot because it's quite hot here on the edges. But we're gonna just let it go ahead and hit the 50 and see how long it takes. All right guys, so it looks like we finally hit the 50. And yeah, it's bouncing between 49 and 50. And it did take quite a bit, actually about 50 minutes since we started. So yeah, I guess that amounts to about the time that it takes to get to that full temperature. Now, in my opinion, this is way too hot. I mean, this is like super hot. So I think this would be about 100 degrees in Fahrenheit. I can't even touch it, it's so hot. So I'm gonna bring this back down to about 35, I think is reasonable. But yeah, that was just a test to see if we can get the full 50. Yeah, it did work. It just took a while to get there. But then again, you know, any heat here, keeping the resin at a good neutral temperature is great. And it looks like this thing is working just like it should. All right, so our first print is done, and yeah, it looks like it's successful and everything turned out good. So the bottle actually has a room, you guys can see, moves around in there. And whatever little that it did touch, it doesn't seem to be affecting it at all. So I would say that, yeah, it looks like there's no issues with adding a large bottle. Now another detail that I noticed is that the bed is tapered on the top here. And so it does drain off pretty good, so we don't have much resin hanging around on the top or anywhere else. And these long extensions here really help keep the resin on the lower part, and it keeps everything else much cleaner. So let's go ahead and release the build plate. I'm just gonna unscrew these guys a little bit here, and it should slide right out just like this. But before I do that, I do want to show you that I did prepare a few things here. So I got a sheet that we can kind of scrape the model off, spatula. Also a face mask, might want to wear that to eliminate breathing in the fumes. So I'm gonna go ahead and put mine on. I might sound a little bit more muffled. And also I've got a little bucket of water here so we can wash. So I'm gonna put on just one glove on my left hand, and we'll bring the plate down and you guys can see what that looks like. Very nice. So there's not much resin coming down, a little bit, which is great to see. See if we can pry this guy off here. All right, so it popped off reasonably easy, and it was stuck definitely good. And I think this textured finish here on the bottom is really helping it stick. So since we're gonna continue to print, I'm just gonna set this back into the printer, and then we'll take the model and we'll throw it in the bath here of water. And you guys can see it starts to dissolve right away. And so because this is washable resin, or should I say water washables, it's pretty simple to clean up the model. So you just kind of dunk it in some water, or you can spray water on it or whatever you got to do. It cleans up very simply, but yeah, if you're going to do this a lot, it would probably be good to have a wash and cure station, which can make this a lot easier. We'll grab a microfiber here and then kind of just soak up the water. And this is what we got. So yeah, it looks really good looking at it here up close. Very smooth and very clean print. And this shows you, you know, what resin printers can really do with all the little holes and just the way this print is. So all we gotta do now is let it air dry, just like this. And then set it somewhere not in direct sunlight, but just where it's sunny, in the room somewhere. And in about a day or so, maybe less, it'll dry up and we'll be able to touch it and look at it. But yeah, that's pretty much the process of breaking the model loose and cleaning it out. So yeah, for the next part, let's go ahead and go to the computer and slice our own models, and we'll see how that turns out. All right, so we're at the computer and I got the thumb drive plugged in. Let's go ahead and open it up. And this is what's included. So we got a profile for the slicer. We got a couple documents here. So this looks like the manual, everything included, and also the parameters of the printer. So yeah, a digital copy of the user manual. Here we have another document. Okay, so this is just the Chinese version of it. Then we have two folders, and they're both in Chinese, so I don't know what it says there. But yeah, one of them looks like the slicer to Linux, Mac, and Windows. So I have Mac, so yeah, it looks like we have Box version 1.9.1, which I already do have downloaded. So yeah, make sure you download the latest version to whatever operating system you're using. And the other folder here is the test file that was included, and this is the STL version of it, and then you got the file itself that's sliced. But yeah, that's everything on the thumb drive. Let's go ahead and open up Box, and this is what it looks like. So what we need to do is we need to build a new profile. So we're going to click on the settings button over here by this big slice button. And once we click on that, you guys can see I only have one printer on here right now. So we're going to click on this add new printer page. And since this printer is not going to be in printers to choose, so we're going to do others and click on default, then push OK. And so you guys can see our printer name is called default, and we can rename it here. So let's go ahead and type in BIQU and you guys can see changes to our name. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and add Pixel L. So these are just the standard parameters, but what we want to do is we want to import the profile that came on the SD card. And so over here we can see we got some buttons to push, and this one right here says import profile. So we're gonna click on that. And then we're going to click on our thumb drive and select the profile folder and open it up. And automatically it's going to set all of the parameters to this machine. And you guys probably saw it changed some of the things when we imported. And the profile is actually called 9.1. So this is our 4K resolution here, the build volume, the size. And you guys can see we go all the way to 220 up. Resin, the printer parameters. So I'm not going to touch any of this stuff, but you know, obviously you can tweak this if you wanted to, but this is what they recommend using. And then we have advanced here at the end, and you can use anti-aliasing if you want. I usually turn it on about medium here to give it a better finish, but it's up to you. I guess I'm going to leave it on. And also you got more options here for grayscale and image blur. So yeah, but we're going to keep it simple. And yeah, we are pretty much done. Our printer should be ready to go, and you guys can see our build volume here, or the build plate size. So let's go ahead and drag something in here, and we'll go ahead and do an Eiffel Tower. So you can click on the model and just move it around, or you got little hot controls here on the side where you can move it by axes, and it also has put on plate, center, and reset. So if we click on center, it's going to center the model. Also the rotate button here, you can either manually rotate it, maybe I should zoom in a bit here, or enter the parameters, and also more choices here. And also we have the scale button, which you obviously can scale by dragging or putting in the parameters, but you can also click the scale to fit, and that's just going to maximize the print to the volume. And there we go. So you guys can see that we went almost full to the top at 215, and I'm going to go ahead and max this thing out to 220 just to see if it can do it. Now it did recommend 215, so maybe that's the actual maximum, but I guess we'll find out. But yeah, here on the top you have a few more options of like hollow, so you can make a model hollow. Obviously this model here not really a good candidate for hollowing out, but you can put the parameters here and it will hollow it out, and they kind of show you a little preview there. And also dig a hole. Once you make something hollow, you want the resin to drain, so you would use this option here to actually, you know, add a hole so the resin can drain. So here we have different viewpoints that we can choose from. Could be helpful if you need to line something up. But more importantly is this section here. So on this tab over here, we're going to have our file name, and this is where you can delete it and add new files. Actually, guys, let's make a little example here. So I'm just going to throw this little frog in here randomly. And if I try to move it, you guys can see they're moving together. The reason why is because it's selected together. So if we unselect them and then just select the model we want to work on, we can work on just that model. So we just got the frog here. And so no matter what you do to this file, nothing will happen to the other one, including also support. So let's click on the support button on the side, and it kind of makes the other model disappear. And so this is where you can, you know, add supports and all the parameters to that. But if you click on all down here, it should just automatically add them. And if you do like what it looks like, just click back to the editing, and you guys can see our Eiffel Tower is back. So yeah, that's pretty much how you use this section here. But let's say we don't want this frog here anymore, so we're just going to delete it, and we're back to our Eiffel Tower. So once you're done working on your model, you're going to click this huge slice button, and once you click it, it will slice the model and then give us all the information. So over here you have a window, like a preview of every layer. You can play it. It basically shows you each layer count and what the layer looks like at that count. So on the side here, we have pretty useful information of how much resin we'll need, which is 55 milliliters, the weight, I guess the price, and more importantly, the time it'll take, 12 hours and 54 minutes to print this Eiffel Tower. Here's all of our exposure printing settings. And yeah, once you're happy with everything, you're gonna click on this save button, and here we can choose where we wanna save it. So I'm gonna save it straight to the thumb drive. And you guys can see here the file type, which is a CTB. And we're gonna click on save, and simple as that. It saves the file to the thumb drive, and if we open it up, we can see it right here. It says Eiffel Tower. And now we can go to the printer, print the file. So yeah, guys, not too hard to understand and use the Cheeto box. You will have to familiar yourself with the supports here a bit if you want to print more complicated models with overhangs and things like that. But yeah, as far as the dropping models in and slicing them is quite simple. So we ran into a situation that's a little awkward because we printed the full 220. It's literally to the very top. I'm not able to slide the build plate out and clear the model. So yeah, that's a little bit weird because this has to slide out completely straight out until it comes out of these grooves. You can't manipulate it any other way. So even though this design is great overall, that definitely is an issue here when you do print the full height. So there's no real easy remedy for this. I think maybe the best thing to do, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the printer, is maybe release the bed with everything connected, including this bottle here. So we gotta be pretty careful here. But yeah, I'm just gonna slide it out here to the end. So I'm just gonna pull the bed up to the front. In any case, let's see if we can get it out now. So yeah, it has to come out pretty far out. And there we go, finally loose. But yeah, kind of a strange situation to have here, and not being able to get the model out because it's too tall. Now, most other resin printers, there's just a short amount that it has to travel to slide out and then it's loose. On this one, it has to travel the whole plate of that extension there on this in order to get out, which is about right here, together with the top piece, and slide them out. So yeah, if you're planning on putting really tall items, definitely keep in mind that you might have some trouble getting them off. Alright guys, so for the next part, let's go ahead and talk about the clean out process. So I am finished printing with all my models. I got the build plate washed. It's in the back there. Yeah, that part's pretty simple, obviously, as it comes out. But what I'm kind of curious about is how easy we'll be able to take out this out of feed bottle connection. And also, I did want to say that it seemed to work perfect as it was printing. It kept it topped off. So there was a couple times where I had to kind of squeeze on the bottle to get it to go. And I think that has something to do with maybe air pockets. And if you knew that you were going to completely empty the bottle and not need it anymore, maybe putting a little hole on the top will definitely help it feed more consistently. But yeah, it did seem to feed either way. In any case, let's go ahead and turn off the printer first because we don't want anything to be shorting out anywhere, as we do have connections on the tub. So let's see how easy this guy comes out. It is empty actually, and you guys can see that it's not a messy process at all. Let's go ahead and unscrew the adapter, and we'll throw it in the water to wash it off. So if you are done printing, you obviously want to save the resin that you didn't need to use, and this is where we're going to grab a filter and we're going to try to pour it out of the tub back into the bottle. Now this is a pretty large tub, so it might be a little trickier than usual, and also we do have a nice pour spout right here on one corner that we'll use to, pour it out. So yeah, we got a lot of resin in the tub right now that somehow with one hand, hopefully this all works out. And through the filter and back into the can. So we want to, filter it out just in case there's any large particles that are in the resin. And plus, if you have resin in the bottle, you don't want to contaminate your good resin with the resin you've been printing with. So yeah, this ain't too bad. The tub is a little heavy, but probably using some kind of funnel would help also. But yeah, simple as that, guys. You can see that we got the leftovers back into the bottle. Now there is still a thin layer in there, obviously. And one way to clean that out is you can put your bed back into the machine. And we'll have to put these knobs back on because of the connectors there, or at least that one side for sure. Let's turn on the printer. And the feature I want to show you is in Tools, and it's called Clean Raw Material. So what that's going to do is going to open up the LCD screen where all the light can shine through it. And if we click on that, you can see we got 15 seconds set. So it's going to run for 15 seconds and cure whatever's left in the tank. Now, from past experience, that usually is not the best idea. The best idea is usually just to clean it out, because sometimes if your resin amount inside is not enough to make a film, and then you just end up burning it to the film sheet, and then it's super hard to get out. Let's go ahead and run it for 15 seconds, and you guys can see the whole thing just pounds through it. And after 15 seconds of solidifying in there, let's see. Yeah, sure enough, we do. And again, if the layer is too thin, it might be way too hard to get it off. So let's go ahead and turn off the machine. And maybe you guys can see we have solidification there on a very thin layer. So, well, there we go. Okay, so thankfully it's peeling off, so we got a whole sheet here that comes off. So this is a good way to kind of, minimize your waste that you need to wash, which is great for, the environment. And by the way, wherever you wash this, make sure, you don't contaminate any kind of water source. So dispose of it properly, because this is, pretty harmful chemicals. But yeah, that's pretty much how the clean tank part works. So I'm going to go ahead and rinse this out. All right, so this is all good and clean. So let's go ahead and fire the printer back up. And under Tools, we got Exposure Test. So if we click Confirm, You guys can see it draws out a little pattern on top, and this tests the UV lights and also tests the LCD screen that it's drawing the layer on top. So you can run this little test to see if everything's good with your UV light and screen. All right, well, I am excited to show you guys the prints that we printed out, build plate back on, and the tub, and we'll take a closer look at those. So these are all the prints that I printed. I do have to admit I made a mistake in the bed leveling. That was way off and I didn't really notice it until I printed this whole batch here in one shot. And that's another great thing about resin printers is that you can print multiple models as much as you can fit on the bed for the same amount of time it would take to print just one. And so our bed was too low and I never set the Z to 0. Basically you can manually set your offset of where it starts. Yeah, the way you would do that, you just home the printer and then go up as much as you think you need to, and then just go back and save it, and that'll set the offset. Now that'll only work for when you start printing, not when you home. When you home, it'll always go to the same spot. Hopefully that made sense, but yeah, let's go ahead and look at these prints. So overall, they did turn out great. One other thing to mention is that I didn't rinse them as well as I should have. And again, having a wash and cure station would be great. So they all dried naturally, just sitting around, and I literally just rinsed them in a bucket of water. Since we did use water washable resin, which by the way, I love, guys. I don't think I can go back to the old resin after using the water washables, as it makes life so much easier for resin printing. All right, so let's start with this Eiffel Tower. This is the maximum height that we could print, and it's actually less than that. As you guys saw, that we weren't able to come out of the build. The tub was in the way. So I think the 215 that was with the profile that we imported into the slicer was the correct height that should be able to clear the plate, I think, but I'm not too sure, which makes sense, but I have a feeling it's more like 200 millimeters or something. But in any case, this is our Eiffel Tower. So the bottom looks pretty good. I did chip it a little bit, trying to pull it off the bed. You guys can see the print looks excellent, really good detail. There's no weird lines on the straight edge, like little steps. We did have a little bit of warpage on the rail on the inside, but the outside rail turned out perfect. So yeah, beautiful print, excellent precision, and we got holes all the way down or up to the top. On the very top, you guys can see it's a little pasty, and that's because I didn't rinse it so well. And this resin that I used is a little more pasty, so you have to rinse it extra. And quite a bit shiny, if you guys can see. And that again might be because of the rinse. Yeah, this is what the Eiffel Tower turned out. So if you guys remember this little bear, this was actually the file that came with the printer. And this thing turned out also amazing. Again, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but there's not much lines that you can even see or layering. It's very fine, like on the top of his head. You can't see them in certain lighting, but overall it looks very good. So yeah, as far as the way the layers bond, I would say it's excellent. So all the other models we're going to see are pretty miniature. Most of them are scaled down to half of what they are, about 50% or so. So yeah, very fine and detailed models. But then again, we do have the elephant foot on all of them. And let's just start with this lizard here. So this is a pretty cool print because it's like a bunch of little holes in his body. And you guys can see on his feet how much off we were on the build plate. And we need to go up, you know, quite a bit there. So over here, I didn't wash it well, so it's kind of gummed up with resin. As far as the print quality, the printer did an excellent job. And if we look at his head there, let's see if I can get closer maybe. Look how even those layers sit. And you can kind of see maybe on the reflection. So yeah, excellent print and looks really good. And I'm really liking this resin from Nova 3D, which I will put a link in the description if you are interested in it. Only thing is, it does look like it requires a little bit extra washing, as it doesn't dissolve so easily as some other resins did. So here we have a pretty cool little print that fused together. And again, this is probably because I didn't wash it so well, but this is a benchmark of an engine that should be functional, but there's no way it is because I can see that it's fused in some places. And also I did kind of break it, popping it off the build plate. So this engine is designed by Sunshine. We got his logo here, and it's a really cool model, but really hard to print on pretty much any printer, resin or FDM, or at least I haven't had much luck with it. And it is at 100% scale. I think scaling it up should loosen up all the tolerances where it would be a lot more loose between all the pieces where it most likely will function. But in any case, this is what it looks like. I guess the main part of here is the detail, and you guys can see quite nice. So here we have a little tank slug, I think is what it's called. And again, because I didn't rinse them out so well, we do have kind of a more thicker finish on everything. So even though the detail is there, I feel like it could definitely be better with rinsing the models more, which I wish I did a little better, as we would have had a little more detail. But it's still, even at this level, it looks really nice and all the details there. I'm not sure how close I can get with my lens here, but yeah. Very nice. So this is a pretty cool one here. It's like a little deer. So we got really smooth surfaces and then also really fine ones going up on the antlers. And you guys can see there's almost no layering. There's slight a little bit of lines you can see here and there. Nothing major overall. It looks very nice actually. For being smooth like this, it's quite impressive. Pretty incredible how fine and detailed that is. And you guys can see this resin is actually on the softer side and I can still even bend them without breaking them. Yeah, very cool little print, and yeah, the details are just amazing. So here we have ultra miniature kind of models. This is a little frog, and yeah, very nice. Again, if we ignore the body and the details, very nice print. So I feel like this printer definitely has a great balance between the quality and the build size. So because we have a 4K resolution, it seems to be just right for this size build volume. Here we have a little tiny Eiffel Tower. Not much detail on it, just kind of flat sides, but yeah, overall turned out pretty good also. And again, all of these prints here were printed together in one shot. And a little benchy. Again, you guys can see the finish on the walls there. It's almost mirror-like and looks really good. And even the lettering back on the back is trying to be shown. I can't really see it with my eyes, it's quite tiny, but very impressive, the detail for this printer. And here we got a print that I used supports on and I didn't take them off yet. And actually they should be able to come off pretty easily. Let's go ahead and grab the snippers here and see if we can snip it off real quick. So yeah, as you guys can see, it does still even come off after being dry. Now, the outer support did kind of mess up here a little bit on the back. So yeah, you do kind of have to look at it before you slice it to make sure the supports are all where you want them, and you can kind of adjust them so you can get the perfect print. So I'm just gonna leave the supports as it's gonna take a bit to pop them off. But yeah, if we look at the detail, guys, pretty incredible. Yeah, if you're looking for a printer that can really do high quality printing, what can I say? You know, this thing definitely does the job here. And check out how nice everything looks with this resin. Just incredible. And if we even look closer to her face, we can see all the details, even in this hair piece here and just everything. So yeah, very cool and awesome print. And the last print we have here is some kind of like a neuron thing. And what's great about this is that you can really see how thin the printer can print. And also the impossible task of printing something like this on anything else but a resin printer. So yeah, like a web of lines inside. Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, what you expect out of a resin printer in this time and age. And the BIQU PIXEL L here really delivers. So the thing to really take away from this printer is that it's built extremely well. The whole casing and build construction, all metal, is just quite impressive. All of the mechanism that runs the printer with the dual linear rails, the ball bearing lead screw, and just really thick aluminum frame on everything. And probably even more impressive is the tub that heats and keeps your resin at a constant temperature. And you can adjust the adjustment on the control panel back there. And also being able to connect your bottle straight to the auto feeder here is really cool, especially for those larger, longer prints. The build volume is great, of 196 wide, 122 deep, and 220 tall, which is more like 200, I think. These super cool, pretty interesting micrometer levelers. It does seem like a little of an overkill, but very nice touch. We got a 4.3 inch large touchscreen display that's very responsive and great resolution. Also, the carbon filter in the back helps with the smells. And not to mention this really easy access door cover for the printer. So yeah, overall a very impressive printer, and I feel like it's aimed for someone that's not completely on a budget but wants more of a mid-tier printer with really high quality build construction and materials. And not to mention that BIQU has a Chi2 motherboard that goes with the Chi2 box slicer, so it's all very integrated hardware / software, which should give this printer an edge as far as updates and the best slicing available. So yeah, if you are serious about resin printing, this would be an excellent choice. So if you guys are interested, I'm gonna have some links in the description. Check it out. And if you did enjoy this video, then hit that like button. And if you do enjoy videos like this, I got more 3D printing videos coming up, so stay tuned. And also check out my 3D printing playlist. I'm sure you'll find something interesting there. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.